Welcome to Martechify, a community of marketing professionals interested in digital marketing, MarTech, and AI. I'm your host today, Ekaterina Konovalova, and I'm excited to welcome to this conversation Cara Cross. She's the Google AI certified product and brand marketing strategist with over 15 years of experience. We'll talk about different industries today. We'll talk about creating AI automated workflows. We will unpack a lot of things today. I'm very excited to jump into our conversation. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, as always, let's start with your story. What inspired you to pursue marketing?
Well, my background is a little non-linear, and that has actually become one of my biggest strengths as a marketer. I started in education, and that is where I learned to take complex and sometimes intimidating information and make it feel accessible and relevant and engaging. I think one of my favorite examples is that I taught in the Dallas Independent School District. I taught eighth graders, and it's a large urban city program. And by the end of the year, I had my eighth graders not only reading the New York Times, actively arguing over who got the chance to read which article first. I think that it was really a great win for me, not only because I was pushing my students outside of their comfort zones, but it also really was just about presenting information and understanding the audience and finding the right entry point and making the material connect to their lives. So that audience first approach really carried over when I moved into sales, where I loved working directly with the customers and understanding what motivated them, what confused them, what created hesitation, and what helped them see value. Marketing became the next natural step because it combined the things I enjoyed the most: customer insight, storytelling, strategy, and helping brands communicate the deeper meaning behind what they do. So since then, I've worked across SaaS, CPG, healthcare, higher ed, AEC, and nonprofit spaces. And this range has helped me understand how different industries approach trust, complexity, compliance, and customer communication. So as you mentioned, I did pursue certifications. I'm Google AI certified. I have my HubSpot marketing certifications and other certifications because I really believe that when it comes to serving your customers best in marketing, the more education that you can provide, tying it back to that education piece, the better you will serve them and help their brands grow.
Wonderful. So let's educate our audience how to create AI automated workflows.
Well, the funny thing about that is that AI automated workflows, that's a big opportunity because what it allows large companies to become very great at scaling the information that they already have, while it also can give smaller companies a distinctive edge because it allows them to create and really hammer in on those content pillars. Now, not everyone needs to become a full software engineer, but I do think marketers need to become more technically fluent. The future of marketing is going to involve traditional marketers working more closely with engineers, data teams, product teams, and automation specialists. So when you're creating an AI automated workflow, there are certain things that you have to think about. Some of it is that this isn't going to be a shortcut. It's a strategic system. And it's really not the opportunity to write faster or get more. You want to build something that's smart, that improves consistency, helps you scale communication, and helps your team focus more on strategy, judgment, and customer experience. So when you do that, you start with these one-off communication hits, and it becomes a repeatable system that can include content briefs, messaging frameworks, audience-specific variations, email journeys, customer FAQs. Really, the list is endless, but it all has to start with your strategy. And I think that the key is that AI needs structure. So when you're looking at an automated workflow, you need to think about clean inputs, approved messaging, brand standards, review checkpoints, and a clear understanding of the customer journey. And from there, really building your workflow can just become whatever you can imagine. So if you can ask AI clearly how to do it, and you can provide it with the proper inputs, you can create a workflow.
So can you provide any examples, like practical example? Because I'm familiar with you creating some of the assets. Let's say
Yes.
you take something and then you multiply it across all the channels.
Yes.
So let's talk
So
about.
one of the greatest ways that you can use a workflow is with the idea of repurposing content. So you can create a workflow where you have like a strong source material, let's say a webinar or a podcast. And then what you can do is that you can take that and you can atomize and repurpose the content using AI. So one strong long form asset, you can instruct AI to take that asset, read it, and then from there create a blog post that accompanies that asset. From there, an email that can go out that directs your customers to either the podcast or the article, social post, paid and organic. You can even use it for website copy. So just taking one simple long form piece of content, you can move out and really expand your messaging framework and allow you many different ways to engage with your customers and find more customers and build more awareness of your brand.
Yes. And let's talk about segmentation because that's a big one. It has been a big topic for years, but as AI progresses and as we see a lot of tools improving and creating more agents and customizing their segmentation tactics, do you have an opinion or perspective on segmentation and where it's headed?
I am a huge segmentation snob. The biggest thing I ask when something's going to go out facing is why? Who's the audience? And if your audience is just anyone who would possibly want to use our product, it's an immediate timeout. Stop. Particularly when you have this tool of AI now, you have so much ways to aggregate research immediately on your ideal customer and their ideal goals. Let's take, for example, a florist shop. Let's say that florist shop wants to create a Mother's Day email to encourage people to order flowers for Mother's Day. That's a lovely idea. So they look at their customer base and they're like, we're just going to send out an email to our customers, all in the database, for this Mother's Day. But they're missing key points of that strategy because when you look at Mother's Day, you have a built in segmented audience. First of all, you have maybe the past Mother's Day customers. What about the mothers celebrating their first Mother's Day? What about corporate clients that might send out gifts on various holidays like that to certain clients? What about people that have ordered from you before and haven't ordered in a long time? What about people that have always ordered on Mother's Day and you just want to remind them? And then my favorite, what about that last minute shopper that needs something? When you take that idea and you can take one strong email, let's say an image, but then you can tailor the headline, the subject line, the CTA in each of those emails and segment it out. And you can run a workflow with that in a matter of minutes with AI. And then, of course, from there, what's very important is that you then have to do the human review because AI is wonderful, but it is not human. It comes back to you deciding, I want to use a strategy. You have to put that in. AI can assist you with the lift of that, but then you have to go back and make sure that you've put in the things that make sure that it's presenting your brand properly. Make sure that this is exactly what you want to present to these customers. You have to also have a strong database. And I think that comes from my sales background. Very, very serious about garbage in, garbage out when it comes to either whether I'm prompting an AI agent or coding an AI agent to what is in the database. Because the last thing you do is, do you want to send a Mother's Day post to maybe a mother that has lost a child? Probably not. And you're not going to always have all that information for your customers, but as much as you're able to, you have to keep clean data if you want your segmentation to work. So I guess you could say, yeah, I have a little bit of an opinion on segmentation.
Yes. Yes.
I feel strongly that is really the way to connect with your customers in a strong, strong way.
Yes. So let's go back to this example with florists. How would you identify the segment of this last minute shoppers, which I know it's quite a few of them?
I love that idea. Okay. So how I would do it is I would look and see, first of all, so you're going to be sending out a cadence of emails, right? So you're going to send out your emails and everything. You're going to then look at, oh, wow, Joe Smith, he's always ordered for us for Mother's Day. We haven't gotten his order yet. Let's throw him in last minute shoppers. Let's do an email cut off before delivery day, maybe a week before delivery and then a cutoff before. And you use that to capture any customers, especially customers that may have clicked through but didn't follow through with the order. Because how many of us have been in the spine frame of, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'm doing that right now with my niece's camp bags that I'm having monogrammed for her from LLB. And I'm like, oh, it says delivery here. I've got plenty of time. It'll be here plenty of time for her to go to camp. It's fine. It's fine. We were literally looking at them last night when she was at my house. And I was like, I'm not going to order it right now. I'll order it next week or something. And she's looking at me and she's 8. And she's like, can you please just pull the trigger? I want my... So we all have that segment of an audience, and it's a great low-hanging fruit, particularly if there's someone that you have worked with before. But even if they're not, it's a great way to capture some trust with like even kind of a warm lead, because they're like, oh, wait, they're nudging me. They care that, I don't make my wife mad at me or I don't make my mom mad at me, So that's how I would handle it personally.
And then let's go back to data hygiene or augmenting data with information. You provided a fabulous example of if a mom lost her child, very
Mhm.
tragic. Yes, that would be insensitive to send the Mother's Day
Right.
reminder. How would you get that data for this kind of sensitive
Well,
customers?
you may not always have it. So it really comes down to knowing your audience and knowing your data. Now, of course, it's going to happen. These things are going to fall through the cracks. But for instance, let's say you notice that you're sending flowers for someone for a funeral, a lot of funeral flowers to a certain someone, and you might then go back and look and see, who is this person? You can't get too in the weeds with it, but that was just one example of if you had a way to flag life events, and that has to go back to your CRM. And some CRMs don't have that, but it also just may be like, depending on how large the florist is, if it's a small town florist, a hyperlocal florist, they may kind of know what's going on in town. So they may be able to read about something and flag, like, hey, I don't want to send to this certain family because of this, or, I may not want to market to them in this way. So it just comes down to knowing your customer as best as you can. And you're never going to be perfect at it. And people will give you grace most of the time. But it is important to know your customers.
Yes, so let's talk about knowing your customer and governance and
Oh,
privacy.
yes.
Because we touched on this sensitive subject of mother losing her child
Mm-hmm.
and what data could be added to your CRM, how it should be stored, and also knowing that you worked for highly regulated industries.
Yes, I did.
Can you
Yeah.
share more about, let's say, healthcare? What is okay?
Yeah.
What is not okay?
So the thing with highly regulated industries is that I'll use healthcare as an example. I've had several healthcare clients, and you want to be really careful with your communication. The things that you really want to think about is that there are a few just non-negotiables when it comes to that. You need some guardrails. Those guardrails can include things like, making sure you're using approved source material when you're inputting information into an AI automated workflow, or making sure you're obeying any sort of HIPAA regulations when it comes to how you're using customer or patient information. You should not be guessing or putting any vague assumptions, and you absolutely should not be putting any HIPAA protected information into your AI agent. You should be using placeholders for that information as much as possible, because even if you have a closed agent, there's still privacy concerns. Even a closed system can be hacked. You also need to make sure that whatever it is that you are putting out, you have a clear review path. Customer facing content still needs the right human review. Now, this could be marketing leadership, it could be compliance, legal, clinical, product, or another subject matter expert. The reason this is important is that in highly regulated industries, there are certain things that you do not want to do or to promise. So in healthcare, there are certain things that you are probably going to be prohibited from saying in a lot of communications, like you'll be cured, you're going to be 100% symptom free. You will, your life is changing forever for the better. Those are not promises anyone can really make in marketing, but you see that in marketing all the time. Yeah, this is your start of a new life. In healthcare, you can't say things like that because we're literally talking about life and death situations in a lot of places. You also want to make sure that you're documenting. So your team, you really need to know what AI helped create and what sources were used. And if there was a change in review, what was it and why? Keep a clear documentation log of how things are being reviewed. One, it's important for just your own team governance, but also it can help you train your AI workflow to do a better job prior to review. Next thing is strong audience judgment. You want to make sure that you can understand that although AI can be really quick to produce content, the messaging that it produces, it still belongs with an audience and it belongs at a certain stage. And in what channel does it belong? Not everything is meant to be a social media post. Not everything is meant to be a blog. I, talk a lot about repurposing content. It is a hill I will die on. Stop creating more content. Stop creating garbage blogs for SEO. Make sure that they all relate to your value prop. But at the end of the day, also know who are you talking to with everything that you do, because not everything is appropriate for every platform. And then the last thing is iterative testing. It's essential. AI systems will only improve when teams test, refine, evaluate, and finally adjust. So AI should not make the process looser. It should actually make the process even more disciplined. But the nice thing about it, whereas before the discipline came from multiple people proofing, checking, reviewing, wringing their hands over minuscule details, AI can be the first pass through that gives you a lighter lift so your teams can be focused on other business impactful things.
Okay. So can we go back to healthcare example and what
Sure.
what ramifications the company may have? I know in Australia, for example, the
Mhm.
fines are astronomical. So every country, Europe has its own regulations. In the US, what happens if by mistake, let's say if the team was not fully aware of what they can and cannot say, especially if they used AI, and they did make a mistake in maybe alluding to a certain promise that they couldn't make, what would be their penalty?
Well, I'll be honest, there's two paths. So there is sloppy marketing, which would be kind of that. Um I wouldn't say that they necessarily get penalized unless someone was to bring a claim against them. You know how we love to sue in the US. So, it might be sloppy. It might not be best practices. Okay. It's possible that they could get dinged. The more important thing when it comes to healthcare is the PHI, which is the protected health information. When it comes to protected health information being leaked, that is enormous fines. It is an enormous a lot of hurdles. So going through training for HIPAA and everything from leaving your laptop open at a workstation, even at home, to going through information like leaving something unlocked, letting someone in without a badge to a secure area. Those are sort of things that can be considered threats. And if that threat were to cause a leak, it can become a very, very large investigation and officials get involved very quickly. There's a full audit. This results in having to inform not just the people that are leaked, but all of the customers. When healthcare, it's so vital that you have trust, your customers and patients have trust in you. When that leak happens, it's going to have damages and consequences that just will grow exponentially because you're not just now dealing with fines and with audits and with someone coming in and looking through all of your information. Now you're dealing with the customer backlash and the potential to lose customer trust and trust in the marketplace because rarely when a leak like this happens, does it stay contained within the company? It does leak out to the marketplace. So it's just very important in regulated industries. First of all, don't be sloppy with your marketing, please. But then on top of it, when you have personal information about your customers that is protected, it's important that you have processes and guardrails in place to protect. Only the people that absolutely have to know the information should be given privy to that information. And that includes the marketing team. Not everyone on the marketing team needs to know all the information about that customer. They may know their first name, their last name, let's say in a diagnosis, but anything beyond that, probably not. They may not only know their first name and their first initial.
Hmm.
So it's just being protective of being trusted with that sort of information. And I think on a broader scale, even in non-regulated industries, I think as marketers, we have a responsibility to be protective of our customer information. We've all been sold to lists. We've all gotten weird emails, weird phone calls. I think that companies really need to tap down and make sure that they are being protectors of their customers' information.
For sure. So if we step out of these highly regulated industries and look at all industries, is there a type of information that cannot be in the CRM? So when we talked about example with the death of a child,
Right.
is it legally okay to have all this information about marriage, death, other life events?
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to that. I do know that in a lot of CRMs, you might have information about a person that you've acquired over the way. I think as long as it's for business purposes, it's fine. And also there's open records. So things that are, publicly available, I think would be okay to put in a CRM, as long as you're using it for good, not evil. You know, but typically marriages, divorces, deaths, things like that, those are open record. So you can search that. Anyone, I could do that open record search today on someone in that
Mhm.
way. And so if it's open record, it's kind of fair game is how it's typically viewed.
Yes, yes. So let's then go back to brand governance. We talked about don't do with the customer data. What about how can we preserve brand guidelines and position brand in a favorable way, especially as we're using AI? So let's touch on that.
Well, I think that what that comes down to is really just the idea that, AI is marketing and AI is not AI versus human. It's marketers who use AI strategically versus marketers who use it casually. And I think that's what comes down to how you protect your brand. When you're able to combine the human judgment with the AI enabled systems, you're going to be able to find areas that may be blind spots to you in your brand where you can either accelerate or perhaps where your messaging is not aligning with your brand. And with that, that can be a very strong tool. So the data that you can get by using AI to review things and against your brand guidelines and your voice can be very, very useful. And that's something that can be done through any industry, of course. I think that AI should not make marketing less human. So I don't think that you're ever going to have this thing where you can just have AI do everything for a brand. And I think that that is what's really important. I think that when it comes down to it, you have to have a strong brand guidelines in which AI can help you write. But if you don't have a deep, deep understanding of not only what your customers' needs and wants are, you got to think about why is my brand even doing this? Like, why am I showing up to do this, particularly in such a competitive landscape? What makes us different? What is the differentiator? Then from there, you can really protect what it is your brand is doing. I think I see a lot of times, I will see ads and I'll see, let's say, an image, and then um, I'll see the copy, and I'll be like, okay, first of all, these two things do not go together at all. Second of all, the copy is talking about something like super serious, like getting your teeth fixed. And they're saying stuff like, girl, I want to slide into your DMs. I'm like, what? This is thousands of dollars of orthodontia. Like, there's a way to do this. It comes back to this whole thing of like, not every trend is for your brand. You need to be able to translate trends that work for your brand. And I think there's a lot of noise right now about brands trying to copy all these trends and thinking, oh, we look so cute and funny on TikTok doing this. That only works if you already have a really strong brand. And where I notice the most is I see brands that are weak, not consistent, and don't have the strong messaging framework. So when they want to do a one-off post like this, it's just sort of random. It's like, this, okay, that's cool, you know.
Yes.
I mean, there are brands that can do it really well that I've seen it, and even really, really small brands. But you have to be very aware of where your brand is, what your brand's doing, and how it's going to go to the marketplace.
Definitely. Oh, I want to talk about some TikTok fails and trend fails. Some of them are very elegant. What impressed me, there was a really funny trend with police station doing this Valentine's Day post about, oh, your guy
I'll
doesn't
open the car for you.
Yes, yeah, I'll open the
Yes.
car for her and all this.
Right.
It was so good, so hilarious. And I saw a lot of businesses or other police stations picked the
Yes.
trend. That was
That's
clever.
very on brand. That's very on point. That makes a good point, right? But let's say you had like a dentist office do it. That comes off a little creepy, you know? I mean, like, that doesn't work, right? So you have to really be aware that not everyone. I think one of the things I'd posted about this on my LinkedIn, one of the cutest things, this little preschoolers, and they do this little welcome song. Guess who came to school today? And the little kids, they get up and they dance. And the funny part of the video was at the end, and this is the actual raw video. And there's like a little boy, and he's in this like, I don't know, some sort of I didn't recognize the superhero, but he's in a mask. I don't know if it's a wrestling mask, whatever. And he gets up as Ramiro and he starts dancing, but he has to have his mask on. And everyone's laughing because they're like, especially parents are like, well, we know who won that battle this morning. You know, it's like, it's so obvious, right? Well, so then you see brands that are trying to recreate that. They're trying to like, oh, guess who came to work today? And they're kind of doing it and stuff, but it was just like copying the trend.
Yes.
So like they're copying the trend, trying to get views, but they're not showing what any value they have to offer. Who cares if you came to work? What does your company do? What are you doing? Views do not equal engagement. Even if someone likes it, it doesn't equal engagement when you're just like copying someone. That there's nothing to really get from that. And so you can still do some of the fun trends and you can do that, but if everyone's showing up to a trend, my first advice to a client would be, let's take a beat. This may not be your trend, or maybe it is, but let's translate it so it's unique to your company. And it's not just everyone sitting in a circle with one person with a paper bag over their head, because that's not it. That's not marketing.
Yes.
That's just copying. I love trends. I think that they're fun to do. With different clients. I did some trends with my and used some like viral sounds with one of my nonprofit marketing clients. We're on the McDonald House of Dallas, and one of the ones that we did is we did a Pass the Shake campaign. So this was more common in COVID. It was more popular where people would pass things on to someone off screen and then it would show the next person. Well, I was there on a short-term assignment, just like 90 days while someone was on maternity leave. And I joined the global marketing call, and they were talking about the Shamrock Shake campaign, which is a huge campaign that started in the 70s, built the first Ronald McDonald House. It's a big deal. And I was like, hi, I'm here from Dallas. I'm new, sort of. I'm a temp, sort of. Like, I'm just helping out. But would any of the houses like to join me in doing this, doing a Pass the Shake, Share the Love campaign that I just came up with? And we're going to like have all the houses. I had like over 20 houses send me videos of children that were staying in the house, passing the shake to another child at another Ronald McDonald House. And I used a very popular song at the time, the Birds of the Feather song. I had to copy everything. I pulled it all together. And within the first 8 hours, this had like 3,000 views. Like it just, and it was purely organic. It just went crazy because remember, this is nonprofit. This is not like a brand, a bunch of people. It's very hyper localized. But by leaning on the leverage of the followers of the other houses and all of that, it blew up in nonprofit terms,
Mhm.
and it was a very successful campaign. But I translated the campaign to something meaningful for the audience and for the brand. I didn't just have them passing random things. I took something that was important to promote at a timely fashion. I tagged the right people. I tagged the right supporters, like North Texas McDonald's franchisees, all of that. And that allowed a lot of sharing, a lot of, excitement. And I also used the brand's best ambassadors, the children and the families they serve.
Mhm.
So so it's finding those and then translating, finding that and then, taking you still have to have your strategy has to come before the trend, is my point. Like you see these trends and stuff, but how does that fit into our strategy? Or is there a trend that works with the strategy I already have?
So let's close the loop. As we're wrapping our conversation, I want to go back to healthcare and highly regulated industries. And
Yes.
they may have more limitations with what they can implement and what they cannot. And especially with
Mhm.
trends, you have to jump fast.
Yes.
With these industries, you need to go through so many layers of approvals, often legal,
Yes.
within the company. Can you think of a recommendation, advice, or maybe think back at some kind of stories, case studies? What can they do to be cool, hip, and relevant? Basically, try to do some of the trends, but given the constraints and limitation of their regulation, what is even possible for them?
Well, I don't think that they're out of the loop when it comes to trends, not at all. But I do think it's really important that they have a strong basis and a strong understanding of what their go to market strategy is, because that's where it starts. If you have a go to market strategy and you're trying to build patient trust or customer trust in certain areas, some of these trends are hilarious, but they're nonsense. Like don't do that. Don't do that. That's not a good idea. So if you understand strongly your messaging frameworks, if you have strong content pillars and you have a strong brand understanding, then from there, when you go and look at these trends, there's not any compliance officers that are going to go, "Oh, we'll get sued if you do a TikTok trend." But there is a compliance officer who will say, "We're going to get sued if this doesn't have a disclaimer because of XYZ, because we cannot promise this, or this is not, results may vary," that sort of thing. So you really have to kind of look at that. um, there's really nothing blanket beyond just truly understanding what your brand guidelines and what the compliance guardrails are for your particular company. And a lot of the compliance guardrails they're not common sense, they are law. So you really do want to have certain things in place. And I think another thing that is important, particularly in regulated industries, do you have any sort of AI policy in place for what can be created, what can be put into the AI system, whether it's, hopefully it's closed. Hopefully you have your own private platform of Gemini. You have the enterprise level. You're not just like having them log in on the Vertex Studio with all of us, who have our personal accounts. So I think that there has to be some, strategic thought around policy, which is boring. And I hate that as a marketer. It's not as fun as just being able to say whatever I want and just be like, it's so great, our brand is the best. But it's important. And I think that as we grow and as things change, I think that's what we're going to start seeing with AI, more policy around it that should not create barriers, but should allow for better workflows and better output of marketing materials.
For sure. Great words. Thank you so much, Kara.
Absolutely.